welcome back to another episode of the Healthy Chicago podcast, where we share the voices and stories of the people working every day to make our communities safer, healthier, and more equitable. I'm Desiree Kettler. I lead the operations at the Community Safety Coordination Center, where we're focused on neighborhoods throughout Chicago and work across departments and systems to coordinate resources. Our goal is to build communities where people not only feel safe, but supported and seen. Today, we're focusing on an issue that affects every corner of our city, homelessness. It's an issue that intersects with mental health, housing affordability, racial and economic injustice, and access to services. And while there's no single solution, there is a growing movement to address homelessness with urgency, compassion, and coordination. I'm honored to be joined today by someone leading this movement, Sendy Soto, the City of Chicago's Chief Homelessness Officer. Sendy is at the forefront of designing a unified citywide response, one that centers people, dignity, and the need for both immediate action and long-term change. Sendy, welcome to the podcast. I'd love to start by having you introduce yourself, tell us about your journey into this work, and what drives your commitment to housing justice.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Desiree, I've had the pleasure of working with you and so many people at the City of Chicago. So although I'm the Chief Homelessness Officer, all of us are doing this work together, and I'm really grateful for that. The way that I got to this position, I think for a lot of people in Chicago that grew up in Chicago, my story resonates with them, right? I grew up in a community that was under-resourced, underserved, a public school that lacked a lot of attention and support from people in power that really had an opportunity to change our outcomes. And sometimes, those opportunities were available by community members or neighbors. Sometimes we had to find our way. And for most of my life, I had to find my way. As a child, as a teenager, had to navigate higher ed by myself with no support, unfortunately, from my family due to financial hardships. But more than that, my experience also as a woman of color, an immigrant, a resident of the city of Chicago that has seen historic segregation and systemic barriers to upward mobility has really encouraged me to think differently of what I can do for a city that I love so much. I went to a city college, Wright College, and then pursued a higher ed at Northeastern public schools, again, public education that really centered the needs of people who are most marginalized. I started my career initially not knowing that it would turn into a career, but doing social justice work and community service work during my time at City Year. I was an AmeriCorps member at the age of 17 and went into high schools shortly after completing high school myself to support students with their education. And little did I know, I was one of those students. I was just in their shoes. And now I had this kind of out-of-body experience where it's just like, oh, we actually don't have a fair share of opportunity here. That really shaped my entire trajectory. After college, I was working in nonprofit. I wanted to support people that were surviving domestic violence, immigrants, low income. But then I came across Senator Durbin's office at my university. And I always tell people, curiosity can lead you to some wonderful places. And I went to listen to the senator speak about his work on the Hill to support survivors of domestic violence through VAWA and the immigrant community and housing and veterans and so on. And as I was speaking to him, his staff approached me and we got to know each other. And that really kind of brought for me for the first time, brought an awareness that I could also be part of the policy and systems change. I continue to kind of engage the senator's office and continue to do my social justice work. I spent some time at county at that time helping people with their orders of protection. And when the opportunity came up and there was an opening at their office, I received notice of it. And I joined their office. And for me, that was a dream that I didn't know I had because I was an undocumented person in this country and had just received my citizenship, my naturalization a few years prior. So I always thought this is so out of reach for me. But the senator believed in me. The team embraced me. I spent almost 4 years in that office. And I knew that the work that I was doing, it was casework. Might not ever get the attention of the media or the public, but the lives that I was interacting with and changing, that I get to live with, to know that I had some sort of impact in their lives has just been tremendous. And honestly, that's what keeps me in the public sector. Knowing that, the work that I do, whether behind the scenes or whether it's visible or not, it is such an honor to do this work for people that wait for government to show up for them. And knowing that I don't take this lightly. Many people would say that I'm very jovial and lighthearted, but when it comes to work, I'm very serious and committed. And it's because I have a lot of people's lives that I'm responsible for. And I do take a lot of seriousness in that. So when the mayor's administration, reached out and asked if I would be willing to take this on and be the inaugural Chief Homelessness Officer, I absolutely wanted to jump to the opportunity, knowing, though, that it's not an easy task. It's a very, very heavy lift, and it's not an issue that impacts just the city of Chicago. It's an issue that impacts the globe. It is an issue that impacts the country and the state. And so we do need to work together and across many different jurisdictions to ensure that we can address homelessness and housing in a way that's lasting.
Wow, that's an incredible journey, honestly. I'd like to say that, we never know exactly how things may turn out, but when we're passionate and things align, it's incredible what types of opportunities can actually come forward. And the fact that you're our first Chief Homelessness Officer for the city of Chicago, that's huge. This administration is doing an amazing job of making sure that, folks that have been marginalized or those that haven't had that voice, right, or that seat at the table are having that seat at the table. And your table is just so inclusive. And I just really appreciate that you were willing to share that background with us. It's obvious, it's evident that that's what drives you and gets you up every single morning. I wanted to ask you a little bit more in terms of your actual work, as you mentioned, as the first Chief Homelessness Officer for the city of Chicago. You've been working very feverishly on a strategy, and I know that your office has some, great things coming in the works. And I wanted to find out, how you're moving this vision forward.
Yeah, so I was able to build this office through an executive order, and the executive order that the mayor signed in 2023 included 3 key milestones. One of them was bringing a chief homelessness officer to the forefront. The second one was building an interagency task force out of the mayor's office. And the third one was the 5-year plan. This is the initial, goals that we were going to be aiming to achieve. And so I'm happy to say that we have completed our year of building the mayor's office of homelessness, which is the official title of the office. And we have completed those tasks. We have launched the 5-year plan process so that we can garner the feedback from everyone across the city and be able to put the recommendations forward that each of our city agencies and sister agencies will be working toward for the next 5 years. We also have a wonderful interagency task force that includes all of our agencies. Every single one of them have been invited to the table, including animal control. I always like to give them a shout out because we have homeless animals as well that need to be with their owners. And they have joined us to ensure that people who are unsheltered and have a pet, that they have a leash and crate so that they can be in community in a way that is welcoming and safe. But the interagency task force has really given us a chance to think about what the mayor's vision is about, when it comes to the full force of government, when it comes to co-governance. It's been in place since the summer of last year, and it's a little bit of a draft form process at the moment because what we're going to do when the 5-year plan is completed is we're going to reset the table so that the Chi CoLab is really achieving the goals that are going to be built in the 5-year plan. But in addition to establishing those initial milestones that we were looking to reach, we also have done a lot of work strategically across many other issues in relation to homelessness. One of them is the One System Initiative, which is a partnership that the city went into with the state of Illinois to ensure that the new arrival shelters that had been stood up under the emergency declaration of the governor could fall into the homelessness system, the long-term homelessness system within the Department of Family and Support Services, so that we can add to our shelter opportunities for people who are unsheltered and ensure that those who were supported under the emergency declaration were not then going to end up in the streets again. And so I'm very, very proud to say that under this administration, and for the first time in over 10 years, there are 0 families waiting for shelter. Every family that had called our 311 office and either was staying doubled up or at another living arrangement now has a safe shelter to be able to go to with no end date until they're ready to exit and continue their housing journey, which means that children have a stable place to rest, a school that they can go to in the area or of their choosing, but they're no longer having to wonder what they're going to do the next day, how they're going to get a meal, when are they going to shower, how can they complete their studies. They have a safe place to do that. We're also working through the One System initiative to increase the shelter capacity for singles. And so later this year, likely in the summer, we'll be able to add hundreds of new single beds to the system that would allow people who are unsheltered and homeless to enter a shelter as well if they so choose. So lots of other coordination and impactful work has taken place. And it's really exciting that the administration is embracing every single opportunity that's coming our way.
Wow. Again, extremely comprehensive, definitely full force of government, all hands. I'm just really excited to hear how much you've already been able to accomplish in such a short amount of time while, so much has been going on within our city and the world. I want to zoom in now a little bit on our relationship, your work with us at the Community Safety Coordination Center, or the CSCC, as we endearingly call it. And so, as you know, we coordinate rapid response efforts. We also work with outreach teams, street outreach, CVI, victim services. And then, as we worked last summer together around referrals for housing or supportive services around housing. And so I just wanted to obviously thank you for, being such a strong advocate, not only for, the work that you've been doing, but our work and making sure that everybody has access. But can you talk to us a little more about what that collaboration with the CSCC has been like for you and your team, and, what you're seeing in terms of momentum for this work moving forward?
Yeah, I think that I've had really wonderful access to the CSCC, especially, to you, Desiree, and team, because the advocacy work that happens on the ground happens every day to ensure that people who are fleeing violence or part of community violence or domestic violence have a safe place to call home. And in the efforts of building an office from the ground up has also included constituent services. And we've been able to really drive change through advocacy for constituent casework. And it's, maybe a couple people at a time, one family at a time, but it really gives us a chance to cut through some of the barriers that even we have to go through, right? Because it's not just the people who reach out to us, but sometimes we realize we're not quite getting the right response. It's not so clear. And I feel that the cases that the families, the people who we've been able to serve have really felt the difference of having a coordinated effort between your office, the Mayor's Office of Homelessness, that we will be there to help tell their story to the people that can make a difference in their lives, whether it's within city jurisdiction to do that or our colleagues across government or community partners. We have found many different ways to advocate and get answers and closure for a lot of people who are in a moment of crisis or need. And many people, in that moment are just there to provide them some moral and social support. And I think we've been able to do that and also lead to the change that they need to see in their lives. So I'm really excited for the partnership that we've started. I don't know if I've shared this with you, but you also helped us with the privacy release form to establish an actual formal way to seek consent, because that is such a critical part of people who are traumatized, is that they have the power to choose what they want people to do on their behalf. And so in that effort to establish a privacy release form, as small as it may sound, it really gives us a chance to let the person, survivor, victim know that you can tell us what you want us to disclose. You can tell us what you'd like us to do. Do you know that this is what we can do for you? And you should be fully aware of all of your options. And so the privacy release has really, for me, been a moment to establish that sense of trust and security for very delicate cases. Because although I work more on a higher system levels, framework, oftentimes there are people directly impacted by the decisions that we're making. And when there is an opportunity to be able to support in a way, it really makes a difference in ensuring that your efforts are having the impact that you want to have. So I think that's been tremendous. And then the support that the team has, and the Mayor's Office of Community Safety and Chicago Department of Public Health has had in the CHI Collaborative and the Chicago Homelessness Initiative Collaborative, which is our task force, our interagency task force, where we share ideas and we build different ways in which we can engage on different approaches to the needs that we're seeing, whether it's for the unsheltered population or people who are in precarious housing or at risk of losing housing. This has really given us a chance to get to know each other, because oftentimes we're all over the city and we don't even know, who do we reach out to for this one quick question. But also that framework of we need to think about trauma-informed approaches to the work, no matter who we're talking to. And so that's given us a chance to really elevate the body of work that the CESCC has been leading and the Mayor's Office of Community Safety.
No, thank you for all of that. I would have to say, I think our collaboration and our ability to work with one another has been amazing because, as you mentioned, you're thinking of things larger picture, right? Policy side, how can we make this long-term impact while also still responding to the acute needs of, the day-to-day, residents, citizens, folks that, are here. And so I think what's been amazing about our work together is that we can bring those cases to you, those one-offs or those things that maybe don't necessarily fit, the current standard or situation, and help then bring, voice and action to, their needs. And so I remember you and I worked on an event. I can't remember right now offhand what the title of that event was, but it was amazing because we were able to bring these real-time examples of the work that we were able to do to kind of maybe, plant a seed for future advocacy, plant a seed for future policymaking. And I appreciated seeing the folks in the room kind of really think through some of these hard, issues that we're facing as a city. So thank you.
I think that was with philanthropy,
there we are.
That round table.
That's
where
right.
we were really ensuring that people understood the different asks that we hear and the different needs that people have, that it's not just a one stop process, but there are many different stops to the journey. And rental assistance, which was one of our main asks, is really critical when people are trying to flee right away and seek a safe place to go, which, this reminds me, big credit to the administration, to the Department of Housing and the Mayor's Office of Community Safety for the Safe Transfer pilot that was announced recently. That gives survivors a chance to seek assistance right away and be able to move out, and landlords as well. It gives them the tools to be able to support people who are fleeing violence in a way that is holistic, with the partnership of community organizations that are there to support through that trauma-centered approach, and funded by philanthropy. I mean, we're all kind of like, everything is full force of government, co-governance.
Right.
Let's do this together. You have some resources, we have some other ones. And this is what it really means to be working for a city that has a lot of different needs, but that we all want to come together and do something really positive.
If we all have a piece of the work, we can do great things together. And that's exactly what we're doing. So I appreciate that leadership. Okay. Another thing I wanted to hear about from you is just, with your storied background and just all the different places that you've been able to work and have impact. I was curious about, some of the moments or some of the people, the things that have really stayed with you that continue to encourage you in this space.
It has to be those personal stories that sometimes only I experience with the person who I'm having direct impact with. So, one example recently was an encampment effort in the North Side, one that has garnered a lot of attention, Northwest Side. And I was there to support with some of the attention that it was garnering from the media and other stakeholders. But little did I know, I would be told the very personal story of a person who was staying at this encampment for months. And I was so moved by what he was saying, and I really felt the responsibility to do right by him, because I knew and I believed that he was attempting to follow the system the way the system was being told to him in terms of, what he needed to do next. But it just kept on not producing the outcomes that he was hoping for. It was a difficult process because I had to, really navigate a lot of historical issues that needed to be looked into in a very quick pace, because that was the day that we were going to provide this moving event. And it left me really impacted by it. I'm like, wow, I don't think anybody will know that experience except for me, because I talked to him. He cried when I was talking to him. He was so vulnerable. And I was like, wow, he feels safe by me. I was able to touch him in such a way where he is just so vulnerable. He accepted shelter, and I believe that initially he didn't want to. He wasn't sure what we were going to be offering him, and it was actually shelter that was brand new shelter that just opened up in December of last year. And I told him, I'm like, would you accept shelter if I told you that this is actually shelter that you might just like? And he said, sure, yes. If you're telling me this, I trust you. And I was like, wow, that right there at the moment, I was like, okay, my job here is done. I'm good.
Wow.
But then Streetwise, 2 weeks later, or a few weeks later, came knocking and said, hey, we have our magazine for you. We talked about that event. And in that magazine was the story of this person in my engagement. And little did I know that they were observing this story. And they asked him about his engagement with me. And I'll just leave it up to you all to figure it out, because it left me so touched that I was like, at the end of the day, if nothing else feels right, this is enough for me.
Sure.
And truly, I have so many of these experiences that I share sometimes with no one else but me and that person. And that is what keeps me going.
No, that's beautiful. I think, it's what we do when no one's watching, right?
Yep.
And I think you are a testament to that. Just time and time again, just providing a listening ear, being present, showing up, right? Not just, working from behind the scenes, but on the scene. I think that's very, very commendable, and certainly has helped then, with the progress of, this work and the way that the city has embraced you as our homelessness officer. So that's incredible.
Thank you.
As we start to close, I'd love to ask for a final reflection, whether it's a word of encouragement, a moment of hope, or even a call to action. What would you like to leave with our listeners today?
A call to action. Yes. I have a very big one.
Okay.
And that is that I would like everyone who consumes, lives, enjoys the city of Chicago to go to the Mayor's Office of Homelessness website and complete the public engagement survey. It will take 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes at most, but it would help us really ensure that we're listening to every resident in the city of Chicago, to every part of the city. And of course, if you're a person with lived experience, that you are shaping what the 5-year plan will be. In addition to the public engagement survey, we are also doing focus groups. So we have on our website the Strategic Advisory Committee members. Each of them are doing a form of focus group or engagement to their network. So we have folks who are representing the disability community, and they're going to do a focus group for people with disabilities and what it means to serve people with disabilities with housing and homelessness needs. We have survivors of gender-based violence as well, and we've already met with a few organizations that support that community. And so we are also doing deep dives and more spending more intimate moments with people that are directly impacted, whether they're frontline staff or people with lived experience. But we also want the general public to be a part of this, and that's why we created this public engagement survey. It's available online. It's chicago.gov/MOH, Mayor's Office of Homelessness, or you can go to chi.gov/take action, and it's ACCTION. It stands for awareness, connection, curiosity, and transformation.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that people are aware that we're doing this, that they are helping us ensure that we have connection with one another, that they're curious about the solutions and responses, and that we transform what it looks like to have an Office of Homelessness in the mayor's office with an administration that is committed to develop housing, to address shelter shortages, to ensure that people have livable wages, that youth have jobs, that our streets are safe. This is one of the many different pillars of the mayor, and just such a joy for me to lead this. But we need everybody to join us in this effort. And this is a way that your neighbor, people in your faith community, your children, anyone can do this survey, and all voices are welcome.
Okay. Well, that is a strong call to action. I'll be sure to not only take the survey, but to spread the word. It takes just a minute to, copy and paste a URL and, blast it to your family and friends. Because as I mentioned earlier, if everybody's voice is at this table, everyone's voice needs to be at the table. And this survey definitely sounds like a low barrier to ensure that everyone has their voices heard and can, participate in this process. So again, the Mayor's Office of Homelessness, you have your own site.
Yes.
It's very easy to find the survey there. So we'll be sure to share that out as well. And I know you just lifted up that big initiative, but were there any other collaborations or resources or anything that you would like to leave with our listeners that you haven't already discussed? Because it's been pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, no, what I want to tell every listener is that if you have a personal need, a story, if the system doesn't feel right, reach out to us. We have talked to people who just want to share their experience and aren't asking for a follow-up. They're like, we just want you to know what this means, right? My experience should make a difference for the next person. That matters.
Yeah.
We make time for all of that. It might take us some time to get to everybody and have the right response, but all of the responses are looked at, are read, are considered. I have a wonderful executive assistant, my only other staff member, Melanie Lopera. Big shout out to her.
Yes.
She does tremendous work to ensure that the work that I'm doing also gets to the public. And so either Melanie or myself will reach out and do our best to ensure that people feel heard.
Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you again, Sendy. It's been such a privilege having you with us here today. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. As you know, homelessness is a challenge we must face with boundless energy and care and boldness. It is not someone else's problem. It's a collective responsibility. But with collaboration, compassion, and continued investment, we can build a city where everyone has a place to call home. This has been another episode of the Healthy Chicago podcast. Be well, stay engaged, and we'll see you next time.
And that's our show. Thanks for joining us today. Don't forget to rate and subscribe wherever you find podcasts. I'm Dr. Bora, and we'll see you next time.